Hello Internet, this is Olin from What I'm Listening To, here once again with another episode of Quickies. The first CD I have for you today, I have a Cluster album. This is their album Grosses Wasser, or Wazer, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but big fan of this band, especially their, I guess, mid-period stuff. Their older stuff tends to be very noisy, very drony, and very, very experimental krautrock electronica. And then their middle stuff gets a little less experimental and more on the ambient side of things. Still very, very out there, but I don't know. There's just something about it that's just very charming and lovely to listen to. This is an album of theirs that I think it's considered one of their best. I've seen the cover a lot, and being a fan of krautrock and just being a fan of Cluster in general, I had to check this album out because I'd never actually listened to it. What I really, really, really like is that there is a quote from Susumu Hirasawa, who is an amazing, amazing Japanese synth pop, I guess you could call him in general senses, a Japanese synth pop composer. Fantastic work he does, and the fact that he is in the liner notes commenting on the stuff Cluster does, I think really is a good selling point. Just how great these guys are. So yeah, I am very looking forward to listening to this one, and I'm assuming it'll be just as good as the stuff I've heard from them in the past. Next up, I have yet another Cluster CD, this time in collaboration with Brian Eno. So this is technically a sequel to the Cluster and Eno compilation, aptly titled Cluster and Eno. Big fan of that album. Also a fan of the Harmonia band collaborating with Brian Eno. Harmonia being a band where a couple members of Cluster and blanking on the other band, but basically two krautrock bands coming together making music, and then they had another album where they collaborated with Eno, and all of it is just fantastic. And so I've actually never listened to this one either, and I find it kind of funny because instead of it being Cluster and Eno, it's credited as the people involved. So Eno, Moebius, Roedelius, and this album's called After the Heat. And yeah, I have not listened to it at all. I imagine it's going to sound very similar to the Cluster and Eno album that I'm already very familiar with, and I hope that's the case because it's a fantastic album. So very, very looking forward to listening to this one, and we'll see. I might end up purchasing this one. The last two CDs I have are actually doubles. So these are two albums by a project called Solvent. I heard this in store one day. I think it was on a Monday or a Sunday. It was on a slower day, and I was just incredibly captivated by it. And as it turns out, this was a project introduced to me by my coworker James, and he was actually introduced to them through another coworker of his who put it on one day, and he really liked it. I'm kind of blanking on which album it is that he played in store. I think it was this one here, Solvent City. There's something about it that just reminded me of the Minecraft soundtrack. Just very calm, peaceful, lovely electronica music. And the visuals on there are just a little strange, low-key disturbing. Not sure what's going on here. I suppose that's up for interpretation. And then this album, I actually don't know anything about. I just kind of figured I really like this one. So let's grab another CD of theirs and see if it's just as good. And what I think is really cool is this one, the project's on Ghostly International, which puts out tons and tons and tons of great electronica music similar to this. I think actually the Minecraft soundtrack was released on Ghostly International, the physical versions at least, so that says something. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to listening to this one for the first time and listening to this one again with a good set of headphones here. Really, really good stuff, and totally recommend checking out this album if you like easygoing electronica music. Alright, that concludes this episode of Quickies. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next week.